how did you first kind of hear about this, like, coming up or whatever? Because it seems like, if it's okay to say, it seems like, Shai, Linne, and some of these other rappers that are like in this camp who have been pretty critical of Reach. Um, it doesn't seem like the kind of music you listen to. So was it just Twitter, or were your friends talking about it, or how did you hear enough about this that you wanted to, respond or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had heard that Shai Linne was putting out the album called Still Jesus. I'm an acquaintance of his. We've met, a couple times in person. We've talked on the phones, probably, I don't know, maybe half a dozen times or a dozen times. I lost track, about all kinds of different stuff. And so, we have somewhat of a rapport. And anyway, so I knew the record was coming out. I knew what it was going to be about just based on the title and kind of some of the press he was doing around it. And I kind of was like, I'm not going to listen to it, because if I do, I know I'm going to get upset. I'm going to get irritated, and I'd rather not do that. And so I just kind of ignored it. And then the day of it coming out, the morning of, I saw him do like a tweet storm, and Wado retweet it all. And it was just really just justifying why he felt like it was appropriate to come at Lecrae, to come at Christian hip hop, how it wasn't a diss, and how it was totally in line with what's right and this whole deal. And so there's like a lot of tweets. And so I responded to pretty much all of them, and a bunch of people chimed in, and there was some back and forth discussion. And in the tweet storm, I was like, bro, like that's it's not appropriate to do this. If I were to do something like this, like it would instantly be labeled a diss track. Like, you're getting away with stuff because you're Shai Linne, the lyrical theology rapper, And Wado was like, no, you wouldn't if you did it in love. And that was kind of like my, like, okay, like, time for a social experiment. You know what I mean? Like, let's take this to some place that, like, we're all passive aggressive, and everybody's talking about each other on record. Not everybody, but a lot of people have talked about each other over the years subliminally on records. And Shai Linne always gets a pass. He did the false teachers thing a couple years ago, 3 years ago, which I called him on and was like, that's not cool. And then he did this. And I just thought it was inappropriate for a variety of reasons. And then when I sat with the record, it was 4 different tracks from his album. 4 different tracks talking about the same thing. So he had the Random Thoughts 3, which was probably the lightest one out of all the 3, kind of expressing his frustration with Reach and them switching up, the branding of 116 and all that kind of stuff. And then he had another record called I'm Hot and MC Goya Skit. Now, those 2 records are records that I was kind of more bothersome by, because he pretty much mocks anybody who's a Christian that decides to, what I would say is, bar up or rap lyrics or battle. And I don't even necessarily like fall in that category. But these were conversations we had in private about nuance of hip hop and the competitive nature of it and the parallels to basketball culture and boxing and, all these different things that, like, dude, there's a level of, like, hyperbole and bravado, and that stuff doesn't have to be mutually exclusive of being a Christian. And we've had these conversations in private, and it was just kind of like, word. Like, I hear you. I disagree, but I hear you. That's kind of how the conversations went. And then, like, for him to go on and do 2 songs making fun of any rapper that, quote unquote, boasts, and say that boasting is a sin, like all boasting in hip hop, including in Christian hip hop, is a sin, was just kind of really rubbed me the wrong way, because I'm close to a lot of these guys in the Christian battle rap community. Well, Christians in the battle rap community who are killing it, doing a great job, really contextualizing, being a Christian in that world. And then he had another song.
Can you give me anybody who's really on right now? I'm just gonna
in the Christian battle rap world.
Yeah, not necessarily he was calling out. Who's really on right now?
Who's doing a good job in that world?
Yeah. Who's doing a good job?
Yeah, I would say the Saga is killing it. He just had a huge battle with this guy. I want to say his name is Demon. And it was like one of the most theatrical things I've ever seen, where this dude is flat out like on some Satanism stuff. And Saga is like up there calling him out on it. And in the first round, the dude like ends up throwing up, right? Like, it's sick, throws up. And like Saga has like these crazy bars about like, this is what happens when God rebuttals, right? And so it's like, nobody could look at that, Christian, not Christian, and be like, yo, Saga is full of sin and he's boastful. Like, Saga represented his God. He did a great job. He contextualized being a Christian in a very dark place. and he should be applauded for that, not made to feel belittled because of somebody's, perspective. And I'm not speaking up for Saga. Everything I'm saying is on behalf of myself. So just make that clear. I'm speaking for myself. But this stuff trickles into other people. This trickles into other artists, trickles into other communities. And so if I feel a certain way, I know other people are going to feel a certain way, but nobody wants to say anything because Shai Linne is kind of like that old regime. It's the old cross movement, lamp mode regime that, that because they come off so lofty and theological that nobody's willing to call them on it and go there with them. And I was like, well, let me do this social experiment and just expose how hypocritical that side of Christian hip hop is, or Christian hip hop as a whole is. And I'm really going to go at him. Like, he made a lot of assumptive statements about Lecrae's intent. He made a lot of assumptive statements about Christians who are quote unquote boastful in their raps. And he made very broad statements about Christian hip hop as a whole needing to repent and, departing from God. And I just didn't think any of that was appropriate because I don't think he's involved in the community. I don't think he's around and engaged with this new generation of artists. And for him to make absolute statements, or not even statements, like allude to these things, I just didn't think was appropriate. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to fire back. I'm going to fight fire with fire. So the same thing he did, I'm going to do to him. I'm going to make it more funny. I'm going to make it more creative. And I'm going to prove, and in it, I'm going to tell you this all looks stupid. And why would you even do this? This is what happened. And I have a line in the song where I said, this is what happens when you make music and assume about how things seem. We both end up looking like fools. That was the first line I wrote. And the whole point of it was the irony of like, this is what happens when I assume your motive, when I assume your motives, we both end up looking crazy. We both end up looking foolish. And so it's like written from a place of irony, the whole idea. And then if you listen to everything past the 3-minute mark, I'm actually really saying these things that I want to say to him. Like, hey, like, you could have been a big brother to everybody. Like, if you actually engaged and participated in the community, like you have a lot of value and insight. You're a solid dude, but let's not get it twisted and act like you're involved in this thing. So to me, you don't really get a critique on it. Like as a whole, you have issues with Lecrae. You want to bring those up privately with him. Cool. You want to even mention some of those issues publicly. I'm not mad at that. I just don't see it as beneficial. And so I'm going to do something back that isn't beneficial, and it's on purpose not beneficial, on purpose harsh, to prove a point.
Okay. Man, I think there's a ton there. So has there been, I mean, you did like, you do a video every week. So you hit on that a little bit, of the most recent video as well. Have you been like, how much reaction has there been? I guess maybe there wasn't the hashtag CHH beef until you came back and did something to get people talking, I guess. What have you personally?
No worries.
Where do we land at?
I don't remember. What was the last thing you heard me say?
Okay. We were just talking about that there is a hip hop there is hip hop and Christian hip hop, and that a lot of this has been repeating. I was asking you about. You said there was pretty evenly split between positive and negative. Does it seem like there's the place I'm coming from is having this discussion and having it over music, over songs, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing at all. I think this is really healthy in general for this to happen. I mean, obviously, I very much lean one way over the other as far as as where I would like to think is where I think things ought to go. There's a podcast that I've tried to consume every piece of content about this I can. There's a podcast called Track Stars.
Yeah.
And one of those guys said, I found them on a YouTube video. One of those guys said, this whole like rapping the gospel thing. And they're like, you're not really rapping the gospel. You're just doing Christian pride songs. Which I thought was.
I didn't say that, but yeah,
no.
That's kind of hard.
Yeah, no, I'm not quoting you saying that by any means. I mean, definitely, I would say, that you think that definitely some good things came out of doing the song, then, right? And kind of engaging in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I had everybody not every, but just about everybody, somebody from every camp called me behind the scenes and thanked me for doing it. A lot of people, you know, appreciated. My audience loved it. His audience hated it, which is what I was expecting. And I'm also just in a place where, like, I am not dependent on the Christian industry economy to make a living for myself.
Can you talk a little bit about what that means? I mean, like
I don't get paid to play at a lot of churches. If I play at church, I'm usually renting out the church and throwing my own show. You know what I mean? And making money off the ticket sales and off the merchandise. Meaning that, like, I'm not dependent on a youth group audience. I'm not dependent on the conference circuit. I'm not dependent on being perceived as this, like, mature, holy Christian that has it all together, and therefore I have to appease, you know, my constituents in that world. I don't care. I don't survive. My family doesn't eat off of that world. Like, I've been able to carve out a niche for myself that is, you know, obviously I have a core Christian audience, but I'm not dependent on that economy. Like, I get, you know, 2 or 3 church shows a year, you know, and that's about it. The rest of the stuff I'm doing is in the general college market and, you know, colleges, and throwing my own shows, some of which I rent out churches and throw them, and some of which I just rent out regular venues and throw them. And so I have the liberty and the freedom to do something that is perceived to be, you know, not Christian or harsh or not biblical. Even though when people settle down, stop and reflect and say, well, wait a minute, oh, there's actually a lot of validity in what just transpired. You know what I mean? But in the moment, I don't care if I'm viewed as the bad guy, you know, like, and I also come from the world of, like, you know, being a huge, like, WWE fan and understanding the heel, and, you know what I mean, in that world. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but, like, there's a level of, like, you know, this is performance art at the end of the day. Like, yes, we're Christians. Yes, we love Jesus. Yes, we love the gospel. But, like, again, we cannot remove the performance art aspect from this, you know? And so it's like, I saw a moment and I felt like there's some things that needed to be said. And they weren't just from this, like, oh, I'm preserving the gospel. It wasn't that. It was like, I saw a moment. I wanted to try a social experiment. I knew everybody would feel something about this. And at the end of the day, to me, that I want my art to make people feel something, good or bad, wrong or right, you know, and I'm okay with being perceived as wrong, because I know my motives, you know, and I know how invested I am in this community. Even though I don't even brand myself as a Christian rapper or a Christian hip hop artist, I'm still extremely invested in this community. I'm extremely invested in the next generation. I'm one of the most generous people with my platform, with shows, with whatever. And so I'm not worried about how I'm perceived, because I know the real fans are going to rock with me. And I tweeted on Twitter, I was joking on Twitter, and I said, you know, every couple of years I do a purge of all my fans to scare away all the crazies and the religious, you know, because they shouldn't be here anyway. And so that's what this was. I intentionally, and you know, the interesting thing is the total opposite happened. I attracted way more people. Way more people came and followed me across all platforms. My streaming went up. You know, the song got a lot of love. And so it's like, it's interesting how something that can be perceived as so bad can actually gain such a huge resonance with people, you know, because it's truthful, you know, there's truth in what I'm saying. If it was completely ignorant and stupid, people wouldn't respond and wouldn't care. And so, yeah, man. So I'm at peace with it, you know. And in that, like, I had 2 diss tracks made against me, and I thought they were fantastic. And I called the artist and told them and bigged them up and told them how much I love their records. You know what I'm saying? And we had really good conversations, you know. And again, performance arts, like, and I'm not offended. You know what I mean? Like, my feelings wasn't hurt. It was cool.
Yeah. When I was telling you, I was telling you about the dude or whatever that was upset by my article 9 or 10 years ago or whatever. I mean, I don't really there's a lot of Christian hip hop I like. I primarily write about film and TV these days and some current events. This is probably, I mean, I kind of said, like, hey, I just don't really want to do music stuff right now to relevance. And I, you know, they've been asking me to do stuff. So, like, I did a feature / review on the new Arcade Fire record. But, like, you know, as far as anybody being upset with me about an article I wrote, like, that I've never met, and I'm not in this, you know, I'm not in this community. So, you know, I tried to patch that up or whatever. And I don't, anyway, I don't know why anybody thinks I matter. And, I don't think I've hurt anybody any more than like, I think like, oh, by just writing good, in my opinion, good work, any more than like I've caused somebody to stumble who left like a negative comment. It's like, well, I mean, that's your opinion. That's okay. I'm not going to be mean to you over it. I usually don't even respond at all. It's funny is, this is probably maybe different than music, maybe not, but I'll get these like really like angry comments on social media. And literally, I mean, it's literally, you can tell the person like only read the headline and then just lashed out. It's like, okay. I mean, if I wrote something and you can't bother to read it, I don't know what I can do for it. Like, but you're angry, but you don't know that we actually agreed. I don't know what I can do for you. Like,
right.
So
I gotta go back to that article. By the way, I just pulled it up on my phone, so I'm gonna go check out that article. I remember reading it when it came out. I remember a lot of people being upset, but I don't remember the details.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably be reading it with fresh eyes myself. I haven't looked at it in years, so I kind of remember what I said. But okay, so you you're on. You put out records for the last 2 years, right? Are you?
Yeah.
You're working on something right now. So I mean, I'm assuming just based on the evidence, you got a record coming out.
Yeah, I got a record coming out. I'm actually announcing it on Monday to the Superphone people, so you'll get a text talking about it. And so, yeah, record's coming out August 21st. So we're excited about that. It's a mixtape. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, it's my best stuff. I think I'm not putting the Shai Linne record on there, but there's a lot of really good stuff on there that I'm really excited about, and I've been doing the weeklies thing, which has been fun, and that's just kind of got me more sharp and more focused on the the creative side of things.
Yeah.
I've always kind of went back and forth between like creative business, and so I feel like this is the first time where I don't want to say I found a balance, but I'm really doing well as both. Like I'm able to operate as an entertainer as well as a business person.
So do you do you feel like you have anything else to say with the record coming out, or are you just focused on other stuff at this point?
In terms of what? Have anything else to say?
I mean, just his sermon is what they're calling the CHH beef. Like, do you feel like you have any more stuff to say, or the record really has nothing to do with any of the ideas of events?
No. The record, I mean, again, I said it in a song. Like, this isn't even something I like to talk about. Like the Christian hip hop rapper who's Christian, like it's just all semantics to me, and it's all very foolish. And at the end of the day, anybody, whether they're Lecrae or whether they're whoever, myself included, like anybody that's a Christian that's making music, you have to have enough self-awareness to understand that our audiences there's a huge chunk of our audiences that are Christians. Whether that makes me a part of, whether that makes me a Christian rapper or not, I don't really care. Like it's just not something I talk about. It's not something I think about. Anybody who listens to my music is going to hear my Christian faith bleed out of the music, and I make it, and that's intentional, but I don't have anything else to really talk about in terms of this content. This is something that I thought would just be, healthy, would be entertaining, and would be, it would stir some things up that I think have been brewing below the surface for a while, and I give a surge of like energy to this whole community.
Yeah. Last question here, man. I'll let you hang. I mean, just give me a little bit of like kind of topically where you're headed, or even musically where you're headed on this record.
So this record is called Indie Jones, and it's really exploring. It's a loose concept, so it's not like a concept record, but it's really just this idea of what does freedom and independence really mean, and freedom, and again, in a very loose format, freedom, financial freedom. I talk about a lot about that. That's something that me and my wife, we went on a debt-free journey and paid off $45,000 in debt in 18 months. And that's actually what catapulted us to be in a position to be full-time with music. I've been full-time with music for 2 years. So there's that, just that experience and some of the pressures of that, but then also just the amazing blessing it is to do what you love to do, full-time. Freedom from other people's opinions and other people's projections on you and your identity. You know, in a situation like this, like there's so many voices. And if I sit there and I'm very engaged on social media, but if I sit there and engage every single voice, you know, about my career, about who I am as an artist, what my friends think, what whoever thinks, like I'll totally lose myself. And so I think I'm finally in a space where like I know my God and I know the call that He's given me, and I know myself, you know, and that's what I'm focused on, and my family and, you know, my local community. So I really don't care what anybody thinks. You know, I have people in my life that I look for, you know, in terms of counsel and accountability, and there's people that, like, if they ask me not to do something, I trust them enough to not do it. But for the most part, I'm not sitting there listening to every person online or every person that has an opinion about what I'm doing. And that's a level of freedom, I believe, you know. And so that's some of the concept in terms of Indie Jones, is just sticking to your guns and, you know, being who you were created to be, and not conforming to the world, but then also not conforming to the pressures of a religious church system, you know, that wants to make you into the image of them and not necessarily let you be who you were supposed to be in the image of God, and the tension and all that.
Yeah. It's funny, like, as I step in to write about this, my wife and I go to an Anglican church, so it's a charismatic liturgical church, which is pretty complicated, right? I would say that a lot of people coming out of this, you know, kind of lyrical theology camp, I mean, given how easily they throw around the false teacher thing, I don't really teach anybody anything. Well, no, I mean, they would say I have a platform, so I'm probably false teaching or something. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to, you know, to hear that, I guess. So anyway, just kind of
there's so many things that are just thrown around, you know. And for me, I was in a space where I had built a label up, you know, to a very, you know, profitable place, and but I still knew I was supposed to keep making music, you know. And if I open myself up to the wrong voices, well, you should just focus on business, you should just do this, you shouldn't do this, you should do, you know, you can totally lose yourself. And so now I think I'm much more guarded and much more sober about what I'm supposed to be doing as a creative and as an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, I think in all that, man, like, I think we just, a lot of people have way too much to say about other people, like, period. And if there's anything I have to say to kind of bring this whole thing full circle, is like, we got a lot of things to say about what God is doing in other people's lives. And I'm never one to say this person's theology is right or this person's theology is wrong. I think God is way bigger than our theologies and our boxes that we want to put Him in, and our genres of music and our labels or whatever. And I want to play my part in that, and I want to add value to people through music and through these motivation videos, and just giving people tools to do what they believe they're supposed to be doing with their life and the call that God has on their life, not critiquing that and beating that up and tearing that apart. Because if God is really God and the Holy Spirit's really active, I think He's going to do His thing, you know, and do that convicting, not me making a song about who shouldn't be making music or who's a false teacher or who's whatever. And so, yeah, man, I think that's really interesting, even that you just bring that up, you know, that you go to a very, like, complicated church. I think most of us are like that. Like, we're not in boxes. Like, we're all kind of on, you know, on a spectrum.
Yeah. No, I had never heard, I you know, hadn't paid attention to Shai Linne in quite some time, so I hadn't heard his False Teachers song until tonight, when I was, like I said, trying to soak up every piece of content, you know, before our conversation. And I was like, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm 0% Joel Osteen. I mean, but if Joel Osteen's a heretic in Shai Linne's eyes for being that far off, I wonder if I'm equally that far off, you know, and not necessarily him, but people who get really, really militant kind of about being in this camp. Like, I would say probably, like, I'm far enough off from their center too, that, like, you know, and not maybe healthy people, but people who take this to an unhealthy place, like, I'm probably a heretic to them.
Yeah, I think, and even like those labels, like heretic, false prophet, or whatever, like, man, when you start saying somebody's a false prophet, like, that's a huge accusation, you know, because what you're basically saying, you're saying one of two things. You're saying that person is intentionally misleading people and they have malice in their heart, or you're saying that person was never saved and is essentially an instrument of Satan. Both of which are really bold claims, you know, to make on somebody. Like, like that's a lot. And so I'm just not in a spot where I'm not speaking on people's salvations like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I don't know Joel Osteen, I've met John Gray at Catalyst Conference a couple years back, and that's I think his young adult pastor. Stand-up dude, loves Jesus, really solid guy. You know, I had a chance to get to know him and build with him. And, you know, I see the fruit of God in his life. I think if we're talking, what does it mean to be saved? You know, confess with your mouth, believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord and that he died and rose. I think Joel Osteen believes that. I think all these guys believe that. You know, now he wants to take a more of a different slant on some things that I disagree with. It doesn't make him a false teacher, and it doesn't make him a heretic. That just means he's off-centered and not balanced. In the same way, I would say a Paul Washer is kind of extreme in some of his views, or whoever, you know, like you put one of those. John MacArthur is a great example. John MacArthur is way on the right of some issues where I'm like, dog, like you sound like a heretic on some stuff, but I would never go on record and say he's a heretic, you know, he's a false prophet, even though he said some really bizarre things about culture, about politics. I mean, it's really off the wall stuff, but I would never say that person is not saved or is a false prophet or has malice intent in their heart, because I just don't know someone's heart, you know, and I know God is bigger than all that. And God stayed and preserved and persisted with me, even though I'm a mess, you know, and I'm a train wreck. Why can't he not cut up with a John MacArthur or Joel Osteen or whoever we want to put in these extreme, you know, categories? And so I know that's way more nuanced, and I know that's not super clean and not, you know, put everybody in a box, but like I think most of what we're experiencing now, especially in culture, like it's a messy time, you know, it's a messy time politically, it's a messy time socially, and that's okay, you know, that's okay. Like I think we all have to land in a place of empathy and love, believing the best about each other, not ignoring sin, but, you know, and cheapening grace, but just believing that, like, and people, though we're sinners, people still want to do the right thing. Like they want to do the noble thing, you know, and they want to believe the right things. And so if they're off-centered, like in a couple of areas, that's okay, because I am too.
Man, thanks again for the time on this. I think this will be out Monday. I mean, there's so much more here that I can use. I don't know. I mean, would you care if I threw this on YouTube to link to the story or something like that? Or would you rather just I pull some quotes?
No, that's fine. If you want to throw it on YouTube, that's totally cool.
Okay. I'm going to chop out. And that's why I didn't mention, you know, in the second call, like the person who was upset with me or whatever. Like I was just like, that's one more thing to edit out if I say the name again. You know, so I'll just throw it up in case people do want to hear like your complete thoughts. Let's try to like maybe in late August or whatever. Let's get something on the books to get you on and, you know, I mean, talk more about the Armenian stuff in particular. I think that my podcast audience would be really into that. So
yeah, and look out for that text it'll be coming probably Monday morning.
Okay.
And it'll be talking about the new project and stuff like that. And so you're on the superphone, man. So you're on the inside. You got the inside scoop of everything.
And I'll try to work that into the piece as well.
That'd be lit.
Oh, go ahead.
I said, yeah, that'd be dope.
Okay. All right, man. I'll catch you later. Okay.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Bye.